Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UHS Liberty, watching the massive alien world grow larger on the main screen. The planet looked like a giant red ball covered in golden lines that sparkled in the light of its twin suns. This was Kratos Prime, the homeworld of the Zephyrian Empire. Jake had never seen anything so beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," said Lieutenant Carl Baker, the communications officer. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the excitement underneath. This was the moment they had all been waiting for. "Put it on speaker," Jake ordered. A deep growling voice filled the bridge. The alien spoke in perfect English, though his accent was strange and harsh. "Human vessel, you are cleared to land at Spaceport 7. Follow the beacon signals. Do not deviate from your flight path." Jake looked at Ambassador Linda Carter, who stood beside him, wearing her best diplomatic uniform. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes, but Jake knew she was tougher than she looked. She had spent 20 years negotiating with hostile governments on Earth before taking this job. "Ready for this, Ambassador?" Jake asked. Linda smiled. "I've been ready for this my whole life, Captain. This is what we've worked toward for decades." Behind her stood Dr. Amy Johnson, a tall woman with blonde hair who specialized in studying alien life forms. She had volunteered for this mission, even though it meant leaving her 2 children on Earth. Next to her was Commander Lisa Martinez, head of the ship's security team. Lisa was young but had already proven herself in 3 different conflicts on Earth's outer colonies. The Liberty was humanity's finest diplomatic ship, equipped with the latest technology and staffed by Earth's best people. The mission had taken 3 years to plan and another 2 years to reach Zephyrian space. Now they were finally here, about to make first contact with the most powerful alien empire in the galaxy. As the ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, Jake marveled at the alien cities below. Massive crystal towers reached toward the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in mid-air. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like schools of fish. The Zephyrians had built a civilization that made Earth's greatest cities look primitive. "Look at that," whispered Dr. Johnson, pointing at a structure that looked like a giant flower made of silver and glass. "Their architecture is incredible. I can't wait to study their culture." The spaceport was enormous, easily 10 times larger than anything on Earth. The Liberty touched down on a landing pad marked with glowing symbols. Through the windows they could see hundreds of alien ships of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like Earth vessels, while others were so strange they barely looked like machines at all. "Welcome committee approaching," announced Commander Martinez, checking her security scanners. 12 individuals, no visible weapons, but I'm detecting energy signatures that could be defensive shields. Jake watched as the aliens approached. Their ship. The Zephyrians were huge, standing at least 9 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in what looked like natural armor made of crystal and bone. Their faces were reptilian, with large yellow eyes and mouths full of sharp teeth. Despite their fearsome appearance, they moved with grace and dignity. The lead alien wore elaborate decorations on his armor and carried a staff topped with a glowing crystal. He stopped in front of the Liberty's main airlock and waited patiently. "Time to make history," said Ambassador Carter. She straightened her jacket and walked toward the airlock. Dr. Johnson and Commander Martinez followed close behind. Jake watched from the bridge as his crew members stepped onto the alien world. The Zephyrian leader bowed deeply and Ambassador Carter returned the gesture. Even through the ship's cameras, Jake could see that both sides were trying hard to be respectful and friendly. The alien leader spoke first. "I am General Thekmor, representative of Emperor Vexthul. Welcome to Kratos Prime, humans. The Emperor awaits your presence in the Great Palace." "Thank you, General," replied Ambassador Carter. "I am Ambassador Linda Carter, speaking for the people of Earth. We are honored to be here." The aliens provided a transport vehicle that looked like a flying palace. It was decorated with precious metals and gems, clearly designed to impress visitors. As they flew over the city, Dr. Johnson pointed out various interesting buildings and asked questions about Zephyrian society. The aliens seemed pleased by her curiosity, and answered her questions freely. The Imperial Palace was even more impressive than the spaceport. It was a massive structure that seemed to be carved from a single piece of black stone. Towers and spires reached impossibly high into the sky, and the walls were covered with intricate carvings that told the story of the Zephyrian Empire's conquests. Emperor Vexthul waited for them in his throne room, a vast chamber with walls that sparkled like the night sky. The Emperor himself was the largest Zephyrian they had seen, at least 10 feet tall, with armor that seemed to be made of pure gold. His throne was carved from a single massive crystal that glowed with inner light. "Humans," the Emperor said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you have traveled far to reach us. Your species is young, but we have heard interesting things about your capabilities." Ambassador Carter stepped forward and bowed. "Your Majesty, we come in peace, seeking friendship and mutual understanding between our peoples." The Emperor nodded, approvingly. "Excellent. We too desire peaceful relations. Your species has potential, though you have much to learn about the galaxy." The first day of negotiations went well. The humans and Zephyrians discussed trade agreements, territorial boundaries, and cultural exchanges. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in human technology, especially their computer systems and medical advances. In return, they offered to share knowledge about space travel and energy production. Dr. Johnson was fascinated by everything she saw. The Zephyrians had developed biotechnology that could regrow lost limbs and extend lifespans by centuries. Their cities were powered by crystals that drew energy directly from their planet's core. They had been exploring space for over 1,000 years and had contact with dozens of other alien species. "This is amazing," she told Ambassador Carter during a break in the negotiations. "They're offering to teach us things that could revolutionize life on Earth." Commander Martinez was more cautious. "Something feels off," she said quietly. "They're being too friendly, too eager to please. And have you noticed how they look at us, especially at you women?" "What do you mean?" asked Ambassador Carter. "I can't put my finger on it, but there's something in their eyes when they look at you and Dr. Johnson, like they're surprised or confused by something." Ambassador Carter dismissed her concerns. "They're aliens, Lisa. Of course they're going to seem strange to us. We need to be patient and understanding." The second day of negotiations continued smoothly. The Zephyrians offered humanity membership in their trade network, which included over 60 star systems. They also promised to protect human colonies from hostile alien species that might threaten them. "Your offer is very generous," said Ambassador Carter. "But we need to understand what you expect from us in return." "Very little," replied General Thekmore. "Simply accept our guidance in galactic affairs. Your species is new to interstellar politics. We can teach you to avoid the mistakes that have destroyed other young civilizations." Dr. Johnson spent her time studying Zephyrian culture and biology. She learned that their society was highly organized, with strict rules about behavior and social roles. Every Zephyrian knew their place in society and followed orders without question. It was very different from human culture, but it seemed to work well for them. On the third day, the negotiations took a strange turn. The Zephyrians began asking detailed questions about human society, especially about how humans chose their leaders and made important decisions. "Your species allows females to hold positions of authority," observed Emperor Vexthul. "This is unusual among the species we have encountered." "Of course," replied Ambassador Carter. "Human women are just as capable as men. We believe in equality between the sexes." The Emperor exchanged glances with his advisors. "Interesting. And these females are permitted to speak for your entire species?" "I speak for Earth's government. Yes? Is there a problem with that?" "No problem," the Emperor said, but his tone had changed. "We simply wish to understand your ways." That evening, as the human delegation returned to their quarters in the palace, Commander Martinez pulled Ambassador Carter aside. "Ma'am, I think we need to be more careful. I've been watching the guards and they're positioning themselves differently around us. And the way they look at you and Dr. Johnson has definitely changed." "Changed how?" "Like they're looking at criminals, not diplomats." Ambassador Carter was about to respond when the doors to their quarters burst open. A dozen Zephyrian guards rushed in, their crystal armor glowing with energy. Behind them came General Thekmore, no longer wearing the friendly expression he had shown during the negotiations. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Ambassador Carter. "You are under arrest," announced General Thekmore. "By order of Emperor Vexthul, you will be held for trial." "Trial? For what crime?" "For the crime of biological presumption. Your species has sent females to speak for your government." Captain Jake Morrison paced back and forth on the bridge of the UHS Liberty. It had been 6 hours since his crew members were arrested, and the Zephyrians were refusing to answer his calls. 3 alien warships now surrounded his vessel, their weapons pointed directly at his hull. "Captain, incoming transmission," announced Lieutenant Baker. "It's from the planetary government." "Put it through." General Thekmore appeared on the main screen. His friendly mask was completely gone now, replaced by cold hatred. "Human Captain, your delegates have been found guilty of crimes against galactic order. They will face justice tomorrow at dawn." "What crimes?" Jake demanded. "They came here in peace. Your species sent females to negotiate on your behalf. This shows that humans are a corrupt and dangerous species that threatens the natural order of the galaxy. The male prisoners will be enslaved as punishment for your species' failure. The females will be executed as an example to other species." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. "You can't be serious. They're diplomats. They have immunity under galactic law." "There is no law that protects those who violate the basic principles of civilization," General Thekmore replied. "The execution will be broadcast across the Empire so that all species can see what happens to those who challenge the proper order." The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew looked shocked and angry. These were good people who had served with Ambassador Carter and the others for years. "Captain, what are your orders?" asked Commander Dan Phillips, the ship's second officer. Jake looked at the alien warships surrounding them. The Liberty was a diplomatic vessel with minimal weapons. Even if they could fight their way out, they couldn't rescue the prisoners from the planet's surface. "Send an emergency message to Earth," Jake ordered. "Full priority. Tell them what's happening here." 2 days later, the message reached Earth. President Helen Brooks was in the middle of a cabinet meeting when her aide rushed in with the news. The room fell silent as she read the report. "They're going to execute our people for being women," asked General Paul Anderson, head of Earth's military forces. "That's insane." "It gets worse," said the aide. "The Zephyrians are planning to broadcast the executions across their empire. They want to make an example of our people." President Brooks felt sick to her stomach. She had personally chosen Ambassador Carter for this mission. Linda was not just a diplomat, she was a friend who had served Earth faithfully for decades. "How long until the executions?" the president asked. 18 hours, ma'am. The message took 2 days to reach us." President Brooks closed her eyes. By the time they received this news, their people would already be dead. There was nothing they could do to save them. "Ma'am," said General Anderson quietly, "we need to prepare for the worst. If they kill our diplomats, this could mean war." War. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Earth had never fought an interstellar conflict before. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 60 star systems and had been conquering worlds for 1,000 years. Humanity had barely learned to travel between stars. On Kratos Prime, Ambassador Carter sat in her prison cell with Dr. Johnson and Commander Martinez. The cell was carved from solid stone with no windows and only a small slot for food. They had been given water and basic food, but nothing else. "I can't believe this is happening," whispered Dr. Johnson. "We came here to make friends." "They planned this from the beginning," said Commander Martinez. "I should have seen it coming. The way they looked at us, the questions they asked. They were studying us, looking for an excuse." Ambassador Carter leaned against the cold stone wall. "It doesn't matter now. What matters is that Earth knows what happened here. Our people will learn what kind of species the Zephyrians really are." "You think there will be war?" asked Dr. Johnson. "I hope not," Carter replied. "But I know our people. They won't let this go unanswered." The next morning, Zephyrian guards came for them. They were dragged through the palace corridors to the central plaza, where thousands of aliens had gathered to watch. The plaza was enormous, surrounded by crystal towers that reached toward the sky. In the center stood a raised platform with 3 nooses hanging from a metal frame. Emperor Vexthul sat on a portable throne, watching as the human women were forced up onto the platform. His golden armor gleamed in the morning sunlight, and his yellow eyes showed no emotion at all. "Citizens of the Empire," the Emperor announced, his voice amplified so that everyone could hear. "Today we execute 3 criminals who represent a species that defies the natural order. Let their death serve as a warning to any who would challenge our authority." Ambassador Carter stood straight and proud as they placed the noose around her neck. She looked directly at the Emperor and spoke in a clear, strong voice. "My name is Linda Carter, Ambassador of Earth. I came here in peace, seeking friendship between our peoples. If you kill me for being a woman, then you prove that your empire is built on hatred and fear. My people will remember this day, and they will judge you for what you truly are." The Emperor's eyes flashed with anger. "Silence, you have no right to speak." But Carter continued. "Earth will know what you did here. They will know that you murdered diplomats who came in peace, and they will make you pay for it." Dr. Johnson and Commander Martinez stood just as bravely beside her. They had accepted their fate, but they would not give the Zephyrians the satisfaction of seeing them afraid. The execution was broadcast live across the Zephyrian Empire. Millions of aliens watched as the 3 human women were hanged in front of the cheering crowd. The Emperor had intended it as a demonstration of his power, but he had no idea of the fury he was about to unleash. The broadcast reached Earth 3 days later. President Brooks watched the recording in her private office, tears streaming down her face as she saw her friend die. The images were shown on every news channel around the world. The sight of 3 innocent women being murdered by aliens while crowds cheered ignited something primal in humanity's soul. Within hours, recruitment offices were flooded with volunteers. People who had never considered military service lined up for blocks, demanding the chance to fight the aliens who had killed their representatives. Factory workers quit their jobs to build weapons. Scientists abandoned their research to develop new military technology. Dr. Stephen Kim was Earth's leading weapons scientist. He had spent years working on peaceful applications for quantum physics, but now he had a different purpose. He approached President Brooks with a proposal that made her blood run cold. "Ma'am, I can build weapons that will make the Zephyrians regret what they did," he said. "But they'll be unlike anything humanity has ever created. Once we cross this line, there's no going back." "What kind of weapons?" the President asked. "Quantum disruptors that can tear apart matter at the atomic level. Molecular cascade bombs that can sterilize entire planets. Weapons that violate every treaty we've ever signed." President Brooks thought of Ambassador Carter's final words. Her friend had predicted that Earth would make the Zephyrians pay for their crime. She had been right. "Build them," the President ordered. "Build whatever you need to make those monsters pay." General Anderson began mobilizing every ship and soldier Earth could muster. The human military had been designed for defense, not conquest, but that was about to change. Engineers worked around the clock to convert civilian ships into warships. Factories that had built cars and computers were retooled to produce weapons and armor. Admiral Susan Taylor was given command of Earth's space fleet. She was a veteran of the Mars colony wars and had never lost a battle, but she had never faced anything like this before. "How many ships can we field?" she asked General Anderson. 50 combat-ready vessels within 6 months, he replied. "The Zephyrians have thousands." "Then we'll have to be smarter than they are," Taylor said. "They think we're primitive. We'll use that against them." Meanwhile, on a Zephyrian mining world called Xerion, the surviving male members of the human delegation were forced to work in the crystal mines. Trade negotiator Carl Wright and cultural attaché Peter Blake had been beaten and starved, their diplomatic uniforms replaced with rough prison clothes. "They're going to work us to death," Peter whispered as they hauled loads of crystal ore through the dark tunnels. "Maybe," Carl replied, "but they made a mistake keeping us alive. We know their technology now. We know how their society works. When our people come for us, we'll be ready to help them." You really think Earth will come? For us? Carl thought of Ambassador Carter's final speech, which the Zephyrians had broadcast throughout their empire. He remembered the look of pure determination in her eyes as she faced death. They'll come, he said with certainty. And when they do, this empire is going to burn. Back on Earth, the war preparations continued at a frantic pace. The images of the execution were shown repeatedly on news broadcasts, keeping the public's anger at a boiling point. Children drew pictures of human spaceships destroying alien worlds. Adults donated their life savings to the war effort. President Brooks addressed the nation 6 months after the executions. She stood before the United Nations, her face hard with determination. The Zephyrian Empire has shown us their true nature, she said. They murder diplomats. They enslave innocent people. They believe that might makes right. Admiral Susan Taylor stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching the stars blur past as her fleet traveled through hyperspace. 6 months had passed since the executions, and now 50 human warships were heading toward Zephyrian space. The Vengeance was the largest ship humanity had ever built, a massive dreadnought armed with weapons that could crack planets. Admiral, we're approaching the Zarian system, reported Navigator Jim Parker. Enemy forces detected. Taylor nodded grimly. Zarian Station was their first target, a major Zephyrian military base that controlled 3 star systems. Intelligence. Reports said it was heavily defended with over 100 ships and thousands of troops. The aliens expected an easy victory against the primitive humans. They were about to learn how wrong they were. All ships, this is Admiral Taylor, she broadcast, to her fleet. Remember why we're here. Remember Ambassador Carter, Dr. Johnson, and Commander Martinez. Make the aliens pay for what they did. The response from her captains was immediate and fierce. These were people who had watched their friends die on alien television. They had spent months preparing for this moment, and they were ready to unleash hell. Commander Rick Stone led the first wave of fighters from his ship, the UHS Fury. His pilots were volunteers who had joined the military after seeing the executions. They flew new fighters equipped with adaptive armor that could adjust to different types of energy weapons. Strike Team Alpha, follow me in, Stone ordered as they approached Zarian Station. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human who will come after us. The Zephyrian defenders opened fire first. Bright beams of plasma energy streaked across space, but the human fighters moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They dodged and weaved through the enemy fire, their adaptive armor absorbing the shots that did connect. Stone's fighter screamed toward a Zephyrian cruiser. The alien ship was 3 times larger than his small craft, but he didn't hesitate. He fired a spread of quantum torpedoes directly into the cruiser's engine section. The ship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. Direct hit, Stone shouted. These weapons actually work. Back on the Vengeance, Admiral Taylor watched the battle unfold. The Zephyrians were fighting exactly as their intelligence had predicted. They relied on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers, but they weren't used to enemies who fought back with such fury. Admiral, enemy reinforcements incoming, reported Weapons Officer Kate Wilson. 30 more ships dropping out of hyperspace. Let them come, Taylor replied coldly. Time to test Dr. Kim's special weapon. She turned to the quantum disruptor controls. The weapon was mounted in the Vengeance's forward section, a device that could literally unmake matter at the atomic level. It had never been tested in combat, but the scientists promised it would work. Target the largest enemy ship, Taylor ordered. Fire when ready. The quantum disruptor activated with a sound like reality tearing apart. A beam of pure energy struck the Zephyrian flagship, and the massive ship simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, reduced to its basic atoms in seconds. The remaining Zephyrian ships stopped firing. Even through the vacuum of space, Taylor could sense their shock and fear. They had never seen anything like this before. All ships, advance, Taylor commanded. Show them what happens when they mess with humanity. Captain Nancy Ford commanded the destroyer UHS Retribution. She had lost her sister in the New Geneva colony, and she had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of all. Her ship was loaded with antimatter charges and programmed for a suicide run. "This is for Linda Carter," Ford whispered as she aimed her ship at Zerion Station's main reactor, "and for all the women who will never have to fear you again." The Retribution crashed into the station at full speed. The antimatter charges detonated on impact, creating a chain reaction that tore through the entire structure. Zerion Station, which had controlled 3 star systems for over a century, was destroyed in less than 10 seconds. The surviving Zephyrian ships tried to retreat, but the human fleet was faster. Commander Stone's fighters hunted them down one by one, showing no mercy to the aliens who had cheered at their diplomats' deaths. "No survivors," Stone ordered his pilots. "Make sure word gets back to their emperor about what happens when you murder our people." The Battle of Zerion lasted only 4 hours, but it sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. A human fleet had not only defeated a major Zephyrian base, they had completely destroyed it. Refugees from the battle carried tales of human weapons that could unmake entire ships and human pilots who fought like demons. Emperor Vexthul received the news in his throne room on Kratos Prime. The same chamber where he had condemned the fine human women to death now echoed with reports of his empire's first major defeat in decades. "Impossible," he growled, his golden armor reflecting the angry light in his yellow eyes. "Humans are primitives. They barely know how to travel between stars." "Your Majesty," said Fleet Admiral Krenthar, bowing deeply. "The reports are confirmed. They destroyed Zerion Station and killed over 10,000 of our warriors. Their weapons are unlike anything we have encountered." "Then we will crush them with numbers," the Emperor declared. "Assemble the Second Fleet. Take 200 ships to their home system and end this rebellion once and for all." Admiral Krenthar bowed again. "It will be done, Your Majesty. The humans will learn their place." But the Emperor had made a fatal mistake. He still thought of humans as primitives who had gotten lucky. He didn't understand that he was facing a species that had been pushed beyond reason, beyond mercy, beyond fear. Word of the fleet's departure reached Earth's intelligence network within days. Spies and sympathizers throughout the galaxy reported the massive armada heading toward human space. 200 warships, each one larger and more powerful than anything in Earth's fleet. President Brooks called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. The same room where they had watched their diplomats die was now filled with maps and battle plans. "They're coming for Earth," General Anderson reported. "Our scouts confirm a massive fleet approaching the solar system." "How long do we have?" asked the president. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Dr. Kim had been working without sleep for months, developing new weapons for humanity's war machine. His latest creation was a series of automated defense platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt. Each one was armed with quantum torpedoes that could punch through any known armor. "The defense grid is ready," he told the president. "We've turned our entire solar system into a trap. When they arrive, they'll find more than they bargained for." Admiral Taylor's fleet was already racing back to Earth, but they wouldn't arrive in time for the battle. The defense of humanity's homeworld would depend on the orbital stations and the skeleton crews that manned them. Captain Greg Murphy commanded the cruiser UHS Justice, one of the few ships left to defend Earth. He had volunteered to stay behind when the main fleet left, knowing it was probably a suicide mission. "All stations, this is Earth Defense Command," came the voice of General Anderson. "Enemy fleet detected at the edge of the system. Prepare for battle." Murphy looked at his crew. They were young, most of them barely out of training. They had joined the military after seeing the executions, driven by the same fury that had motivated the entire human race. "You all know why we're here," Murphy told them. "Those aliens think they can come to our home and finish what they started. They're wrong. Today we show them that humanity doesn't run from bullies." The Zephyrian fleet appeared on the edge of the solar system like a storm cloud of death. 200 massive ships, each one armed with enough firepower to level a continent. Admiral Krenthar stood on his flagship's bridge, confident in his overwhelming advantage. "Humans," he broadcast toward Earth. "You have one chance to surrender. Submit to the Empire's justice and we will spare your civilians." The response came from President Brooks herself. "Admiral, you came here to finish what your Emperor started. You want to see what happens when you murder our women. Today you'll find out." The battle began with the activation of the asteroid defense grid. Hidden platforms throughout the belt opened fire simultaneously, launching hundreds of quantum torpedoes at the Zephyrian fleet. The aliens had expected primitive human weapons, but these torpedoes tore through their shields like paper. Admiral Krenthar watched in horror as his lead ships simply disintegrated. Impossible. How do they have such weapons? "Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the system," reported his science officer. "They've turned their entire solar system into a weapons platform." But the Zephyrians still had numbers on their side. They pushed deeper into the system, trading ships for distance. For every human torpedo that found its mark, they destroyed a defense platform. The battle became a grinding war of attrition. Captain Murphy's cruiser was one of the last ships defending Earth itself. He watched as the surviving Zephyrian ships broke through the outer defenses, heading straight for humanity's homeworld. "This is it," he told his crew. "Time to make them pay." The Justice accelerated toward the enemy flagship, its engines pushed beyond their safety limits. Murphy had loaded his ship with every antimatter charge they could carry. It was a one-way trip, but he didn't care. The news of the Battle of Sol spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire for centuries suddenly saw hope for the first time. The humans had done the impossible. They had defeated a major Zephyrian fleet and survived. On the water world of Aquatica, the Cetacean Republic held an emergency meeting of their council. The whale-like beings had been forced to pay tribute to the Empire for over 300 years. Now they saw a chance for freedom. "The humans have proven that the Zephyrians can be beaten," declared Prime Speaker Tidalsong, her massive form floating in the council chamber's deep pool. "Perhaps it is time we stopped bowing to these land-dwelling tyrants." Similar conversations were happening throughout the galaxy. The draconic clans, proud reptilian warriors who had been defeated decades ago, began sharpening their claws. The QE, Silicon Collective, machine beings from the galactic core, started calculating the odds of successful rebellion. General Paul Anderson, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Allied Forces, received messages from dozens of species offering to join humanity's war against the Empire. Earth's small diplomatic fleet was suddenly overwhelmed with requests for military alliances. "This is incredible," Anderson told President Brooks during their daily briefing. "Half the galaxy wants to fight alongside us. The Zephyrians have made a lot of enemies over the centuries." "Good," Brooks replied coldly. "We can use all the help we can get. What's our current military status?" "We have 80 combat ships now, and Dr. Kim's factories are producing new weapons around the clock. The quantum disruptors are proving incredibly effective, and we've started development on something even more powerful." Dr. Kim had been working on a new weapon called the molecular cascade bomb. Unlike the quantum disruptors that simply unmade matter, this weapon would break down all organic compounds on a planetary scale. It was designed to sterilize entire worlds, turning them into lifeless rocks. "Are you sure about this?" President Brooks asked when Kim showed her the weapon's specifications. "This goes beyond warfare. This is genocide." "Ma'am," they started. "This when they hanged our people," Kim replied. "They wanted to make an example of our women. Now we're going to make an example of their empire." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison had finally escaped from Zephyrian custody. After months of planning, he and his crew had stolen a transport ship and fought their way off the mining world where they had been held. Now he commanded a special human task force dedicated to hunting down the aliens responsible for the executions. "Target acquired," reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Mary Collins. "Governor Yexaqual, the one who ordered the hangings, is currently on the planet Draconis 5. Morrison's eyes burned with hatred. He had watched helplessly from orbit as his friends were murdered. Now he finally had a chance for revenge. "Prepare the assault team," he ordered. "We're going to give that alien a taste of human justice." The attack on Draconis 5 was swift and brutal. Morrison's forces landed under cover of darkness and stormed the governor's palace. The Zephyrian guards were no match for humans armed with quantum weapons and motivated by pure fury. Governor Yexqual was captured alive and brought before Morrison in chains. The alien who had once ordered the deaths of human diplomats now cowered before a species he had thought was weak and primitive. "You remember Ambassador Carter?" Morrison asked, his voice deadly quiet. "Dr. Johnson? Commander Martinez? You had them hanged like criminals. They violated the natural order," Yexqual hissed. "Females cannot be permitted to speak for their species." Morrison's fist connected with the alien's face, sending him sprawling. "Then you're going to love what happens next." The execution of Governor Yexqual was broadcast across human space and to their alien allies. The governor was hanged using traditional human methods in the same plaza where he had ordered the diplomats' deaths. The message was clear. Humanity would hunt down every alien responsible for the murders, no matter how long it took. Emperor Vexthul watched the broadcast from his throne room, his golden armor reflecting the rage burning in his yellow eyes. His empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years, was crumbling before his eyes. Dozens of worlds were in open rebellion, and his own forces were suffering defeat after defeat. "Your Majesty," said his new military advisor, General Sektar, "we must consider using the biological weapons. The humans have allies now. Conventional warfare is not working." The Emperor pondered this suggestion. The Empire had developed viruses that could kill entire species, weapons so terrible they had been banned even during their worst wars. But desperate times called for desperate measures. "Do it," he ordered. "Target their civilian colonies. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us." The biological attack hit the human colony of New Geneva without warning. The virus was designed specifically to target human DNA, and it spread through the population like wildfire. Within days, 50,000 colonists were dead, including thousands of children who had never seen Earth. The images from New Geneva were horrific. Entire families dead in their homes, children's playgrounds empty and silent. The virus had been engineered to cause maximum suffering before death, and the Zephyrians had made sure the human government saw every terrible detail. President Brooks watched the reports with tears streaming down her face. These were innocent, people who had died simply because they were human. The Empire had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. "Dr. Kim," she said quietly, her voice filled with cold fury, "deploy the molecular cascade bombs. I don't care about the moral implications anymore. These monsters want to play genocide games? Let's show them how it's done." The first target was the Zephyrian military world of Kethvar. It was home to 3 million soldiers and their families, a fortress planet that had never fallen to any enemy. Dr. Rachel Stone, Kim's replacement after he died in a lab accident, personally oversaw the weapons deployment. "Molecular cascade bomb armed and ready," she reported to Admiral Taylor, who had been given the honor of pressing the button. "One shot will sterilize the entire planet." Taylor thought of Ambassador Carter, Dr. Johnson, and Commander Martinez. She thought of the children of New Geneva, dead because aliens thought human women shouldn't be allowed to speak. She thought of every human who had suffered because of Zephyrian hatred. "For humanity," she whispered, and activated the weapon. The molecular cascade bomb detonated in Kethvar's upper atmosphere. The effect was invisible at first, but within hours every living thing on the planet began to die. Plants withered, animals collapsed, and the Zephyrian population simply ceased to exist. The planet itself remained intact, but it was now completely lifeless. The weapon's effectiveness shocked even its creators. An entire world of 3 million beings had been killed in less than a day, and there was no defense against it. The Zephyrians finally understood what they were facing, a species so angry that they were willing to commit genocide to get their revenge. Other Zephyrian worlds began to surrender rather than face the same fate. The proud empire that had ruled the galaxy for centuries was collapsing as its own subjects turned against them. Fear of human weapons spread faster than any virus. "Your Majesty," General Sektar reported, his voice shaking, 15 more worlds have declared independence. The draconic clans have taken the Vega system. The Cetacean Republic is blockading our trade routes, and the humans, they're building something new. Emperor Vexthul demanded to know what the humans were constructing. The answer came from his spies in the outer systems. Humanity was building something called a planet cracker, a weapon that could destroy entire worlds by destabilizing their gravitational fields. Impossible, the Emperor growled. No species has ever developed such power. But the reports kept coming. Human shipyards were working around the clock, building weapons that defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The species, that had been considered primitive just 2 years ago, was now developing technology that could reshape reality itself. The war was entering its final phase, and the Zephyrian Empire was losing badly. Their military forces were scattered, their allies had abandoned them, and their enemies were armed with weapons beyond imagination. Captain Morrison's revenge fleet had grown into a massive armada dedicated to hunting down war criminals. They had captured or killed dozens of aliens responsible for human deaths, each execution broadcast to show the galaxy that humanity kept its promises. Next target is Admiral Thekmore, Morrison told his officers. The one who arrested our diplomats, in the first place. Intelligence says he's hiding on Omega Station. Sir, said Commander Phillips, Omega Station is heavily defended. It could be a trap. Morrison's smile was cold as winter. Good. I hope they try to fight. I want them to know what's coming before they die. The attack on Omega Station was humanity's most daring operation yet. They used their new gravity bombs to tear the station apart piece by piece, hunting through the wreckage for the alien who had started it all. Admiral Thekmore was found hiding in an escape pod, the proud Zephyrian officer reduced to a frightened refugee. When Morrison dragged him before the cameras, the alien begged for mercy. Please, Thekmore whispered. I was following orders. I never wanted to hurt your people. 3 years had passed since Ambassador Carter, Dr. Johnson, and Commander Martinez were hanged in the plaza of Kratos Prime. Now Admiral Taylor stood on the bridge of the UHS Vengeance, watching that same world grow larger on her screen. Behind her flew the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, 300 ships from Earth and their alien allies. The Zephyrian Empire was finished. Most of their worlds had either been destroyed or had joined the rebellion. Emperor Vexthul sat, alone in his palace, abandoned by his generals and hated by his own people. The empire that had ruled the galaxy for 1,000 years was about to die. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the planet, reported Communications Officer Danny Roberts. It's from Emperor Vexthul himself. Put him through, Taylor ordered. The alien emperor appeared on the main screen, but he looked nothing like the proud ruler who had condemned the human diplomats. His golden armor was cracked and tarnished, his yellow eyes filled with defeat and fear. Admiral Taylor, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I wish to discuss terms of surrender. Taylor's expression didn't change. There are no terms, Emperor. You hanged our people. You started a biological war against our civilians. You made this personal. Please, Vexthul begged. My empire is destroyed. My people are scattered. What more do you want? Justice, Taylor replied coldly. The same justice you gave our diplomats. The transmission ended and Taylor turned to her fleet commanders. Begin the assault. I want every Zephyrian military installation on that planet turned to ash. The audio bombardment of Kratos Prime was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships armed with quantum disruptors and molecular cascade bombs rained destruction on the planet's surface. Military bases that had stood for centuries were erased in seconds. The crystal towers that had once been symbols of Zephyrian power crumbled into dust. Colonel Tom Brady led the ground assault on the capital city. His Marines had trained for this moment for 3 years, studying every street and building on Kratos Prime. They knew exactly where to find the aliens responsible for their friends' deaths. Remember, Brady told his troops as they landed in the ruins of the spaceport. We're not here to conquer. We're here to finish what they started. The Zephyrian defenders fought desperately, but they were no match for human soldiers armed with quantum weapons and driven by righteous fury. Brady's Marines cut through the alien forces like a knife through paper, showing no mercy to the species that had shown none to their diplomats. Captain Morrison led a special team directly to the Imperial Palace. He had waited 3 years for This moment, 3 years to look Emperor Vexthul in the eyes and make him pay for what he had done. The palace guards tried to stop them, but human weapons made short work of the alien soldiers. Morrison and his team fought their way through corridors where Ambassador Carter had once walked in peace, past the very rooms where the diplomatic negotiations had taken place. They found Emperor Vexthul in his throne room, the same chamber where he had condemned the human women to death. The massive crystal throne still glowed with inner light, but the emperor who sat on it was a broken shell of his former self. "Captain Morrison," Vexthul said as the humans entered the room, "I remember you. You commanded the ship that brought the diplomats here." "That's right," Morrison replied, his weapon trained on the alien ruler. "I watched from orbit while you murdered my friends. Now it's time to pay the price." "I was protecting the natural order," Vexthul said weakly. "Females cannot be permitted to lead. It goes against everything civilized species believe." Morrison's finger tightened on the trigger. "Ambassador Carter was worth 1,000 of you. Dr. Johnson was trying to build bridges between our species. Commander Martinez was protecting innocent people, and you killed them because they were women." "Please," the Emperor begged. "I can make amends. I can pay reparations. My people will serve yours." "Too late for that," Morrison said. "You should have thought about mercy before you put nooses around their necks." The trial of Emperor Vexthul was broadcast across the galaxy. Species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule for centuries watched as the tyrant who had oppressed them faced human justice. The trial lasted only 1 day, as the evidence of his crimes was overwhelming. President Brooks herself read the charges. "Emperor Vexthul, you are accused of ordering the execution of 3 human diplomats who came to your world in peace. You are accused of starting a biological war against innocent civilians. You are accused of crimes against sapient life throughout the galaxy." The Emperor's defense was pathetic. He claimed he was protecting galactic civilization from the chaos that would result if females were allowed to lead. He insisted that his actions were justified by ancient traditions and natural law. The jury of humans and aliens took less than an hour to reach their verdict, guilty on all charges. The sentence was death, to be carried out in the same plaza where the human diplomats had died. Dr. Rachel Stone had completed work on humanity's most terrifying weapon, the planet cracker. It was a device that could destabilize a world's gravitational field, literally tearing the planet apart from the inside. She had wanted to test it on an uninhabited world, but President Brooks had a different idea. "Use it on Durketh," the president ordered. "The Zephyrians used that world as a fortress to launch attacks on our colonies. Let's show the galaxy what happens when you make humanity angry." The test of the planet cracker was visible from dozens of star systems. The weapon created a beautiful but terrifying light show as the planet Durketh simply came apart. Billions of tons of rock and metal scattered across space, creating a new asteroid field where a world had once existed. The demonstration had its intended effect. The remaining Zephyrian holdouts surrendered immediately rather than face the same fate. Even humanity's allies looked at them with new fear and respect. Earth had become the dominant power in the galaxy through sheer destructive capability. The execution of Emperor Vexthul took place exactly 3 years after the deaths of the human diplomats. The plaza where Ambassador Carter, Dr. Johnson, and Commander Martinez had died was packed with beings from across the galaxy who had come to witness the end of the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Morrison had the honor of placing the noose around the Emperor's neck. As he did, he whispered the names of the 3 women who had died in this same spot. "This is for Ambassador Linda Carter, who came here seeking peace," he said. "For Dr. Amy Johnson, who wanted to learn about your culture. For Commander Lisa Martinez, who died protecting innocent people. And for every human who will never have to fear your empire again." Emperor Vexthul's last words were a warning that proved to be prophetic. "You think you have won," he gasped. "But you have become the very thing you fought against. The galaxy will fear you as they feared us." Morrison pulled the lever, and the last emperor of the Zephyrian Empire died in the same plaza where he had murdered 3 innocent women. The crowd cheered, but the celebration felt hollow. Too much blood had been spilled, Too many worlds destroyed, too many lives lost. In the aftermath of the war, humanity found itself ruling an empire larger than the Zephyrians had ever controlled. The human hegemony stretched across 60-star systems with Earth as its capital and Admiral Taylor as its first military commander. The war tribunals continued for months as humanity hunted down every alien official who had been involved in the executions or the biological attacks. They were all hanged in public ceremonies broadcast across the galaxy. Justice was served, but at a terrible cost. Dr. Stone continued her weapons research, developing even more powerful devices in underground laboratories on Earth. The quantum disruptors and planet crackers were now considered obsolete compared to her latest creations. Humanity had become so technologically advanced that no other species could challenge them. President Brooks, now in her 70s and worn down by years of war, visited the memorial erected on Kratos Prime where the 3 diplomats had died. The simple stone monument bore their names and a single inscription. Their deaths lit the fire that burned an empire to ash. Was it worth it? Asked General Anderson, who had accompanied her to the ceremony. All the death, all the destruction, all the fear we've created? Brooks thought of Ambassador Carter's final words, broadcast across the galaxy as she faced death with dignity. She had predicted that Earth would make the Zephyrians pay for their crime. She had been right. But the price had been higher than anyone could have imagined. I don't know, Brooks admitted. We got our revenge, but we lost something in the process. Look what we've become. Earth's children now grew up learning about quantum physics and planetary destruction. Their toys were model starships armed with world-killing weapons. Their heroes were the soldiers and scientists who had brought the galaxy to its knees. Captain Morrison, now an admiral commanding the largest fleet in galactic history, often stood alone on his ship's bridge, thinking about the friends he had lost. He had avenged their deaths, but victory felt empty. The 3 women who had died seeking peace would have been horrified by what their deaths had unleashed. The galaxy was at peace now, but it was the peace of the graveyard. Species obeyed. Human commands not out of respect but out of terror.